In my experience, what happens when you start this practice is that at first, maybe there's a tiny inclination, but that was that's sort of the first question of who am I, because we're not really used to that orientation of that pure awareness, let's say. And so as soon as you get a glimmer of that, that's sort of the first realization. But it can remain. Some people have it remain of that's always their orienting principle, but others it doesn't. And for the majority of people, it does not. It's almost like a glimmer. You get a glimmer of it, and then you're constantly, because we're habituated to identify with our thoughts, emotions, sensations, is that we feel like we are them, and so that's just what we've culturally been brought up with, and so we're gonna orient to that. And as we unravel ourselves from that, or uncouple ourselves and rest back in awareness, which is why these practices come about and why people recommend doing them over and over again, is essentially it's sort of like you forget your true nature, and then you recognize it, and then you forget it again because something pulls you away. And we all, I mean, that's been definitely my experience, is sort of like, oh my goodness, what, and then all of a sudden, and then something happens, right? Like I gotta go and take an exam for medical school. I'm like, crap. Like I had to study and, memorize and all this stuff. And it's like, how can I be in my true, like, how can I rest in my true nature when I got to do all these thought oriented things? And then I'm, and then I identify myself with the grade I get on the exam, or whatever it might be. And I completely forget about my true nature. And I'm not oriented to that, because then I got to apply to residency, and and then I'm judged against all my other compatriots and whatnot. So you forget it, and it's this constant sort of revisiting it, revisit it, revisit it, revisit it, revisit it, revisit it, and as you do that more frequently, then, and you'll notice if you do this practice, and many of you may be noticing it already, that the time spent in each one of these sort of areas, let's call it, even though it's not, you can't separate, but the time spent is shifting. It's sort of like how much time, right? If I was to quantify, how much time in your day is spent orienting only to your thoughts, emotions, or sensations, or how much time of your day is actually spent orienting to pure awareness, or the awareness of thoughts, emotions, and sensations. And at the beginning, it might be 1 minute. And as you do the practice more, that minute starts becoming 2 minutes. It starts becoming 5 minutes. It starts becoming 20 minutes. You start recognizing that you then wake up and you start observing your thoughts as opposed to being them. And so more and more of your time is actually in that state of your true nature. And then you can rest in that, and some people then are oriented to that. Now, we're always there, but we're not aware of it. Right? So we're always there, we're not aware of it. And so it's that being aware of it. Awareness is always present. It's just our attention is out here, and it's not back here. It's out here, and so it is on the waves. And so we just want to come back into the depths of the ocean. So some of us are hanging out in the depths of the ocean. And essentially this awareness or attention is like, they say like as above, so below, as below, so above. When you look at it, multiple different analogies of this, people have looked at the way that the universe, or our entire universe, is connected, and it looks like neurons connected in the brain, for instance. When you look at the intricacies of electrons, or patterns around solar systems, it looks like patterns around an electron, or electrons creating an atom. And so there's a lot of even physical examples of as above, so below. And even in this sense of attention, the way that I feel it or perceive it, we're always connected to source. We're always connected to God. We are we are God. We are source. I'm also a physical manifestation, like I'm a human body. And so there's this connection of like a two-way highway, in essence, energetically, from an unmanifest energy to a manifested energy. Same thing with awareness and attention. That awareness is the unmanifested thought, sensation, emotion, but it's also the perceiver, the witnesser of it as well. And so all sensations, emotions, thoughts emerge from awareness. And in doing so, then, right, there can be, therefore, an outwardly projected attention, or there could be an inwardly projected attention, sort of resting that attention, sort of out and in, almost like a little kaleidoscope or a microscope, where you go close, come back far away, go close, come back far away, rest that attention. And so that's also a piece of this, of recognizing that, if you want to direct your attention to the fruit that you're eating, then direct that attention to the fruit that you're doing, but do it consciously. Do it willingly. Do it from that space of pure awareness, from your true nature. Come out. Here's my apple. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to be present with this apple as I'm eating it. Right? And now my attention is going outward, and it's really involved in participating in the sensations of the sweetness of the apple. It's a 10-minute raisin meditation. And so that's one aspect of it, is this outward. And then there's also the aspect of it of then as you're sensing the sweetness, right? Recognizing, being aware of the awareness of the ability to taste the sweetness. And that involves a little bit, it's sort of like that involves that little bit of a resting back, or a resting of our attention to then be aware of it. And these are practices that you can do. And this is what I really recommend to get like that exercise in awareness training, right? Is doing this all the time. Like whenever you can think about it. So what's interesting is when you're doing this, right? Let's say you're walking down the street. And you're doing this practice, right? You're resting your attention. You're going in, and you're having those glimpses, those moments of pure awareness, and then all of a sudden something from the external, usually it's something from the external world, will pop something up, and then your attention will go out to that, and a thought will come, right? There's a fast, loud car that goes down, and instantaneously, right? You're walking down the street, and all of a sudden, you're like, okay, that might pull you away from your true nature. There's something from the outside world that pulls you away. Okay. Now you want to be aware of this, right? You want to notice what are the things that typically pull you away from your true nature, right? when you're in that space, even when we're here in meditation, right? Is it all of a sudden like a thought appears and it's like, oh crap, I forgot to call my mom. Oh my God, it was her birthday yesterday, right? And so something pops in, right? And now you're out. You're out. Okay, so there's now it's like here I was in that space of awareness, and now I'm out. I'm worried. Now my mom, I totally forgot about calling my mom for her birthday, right? Or I need to go to the grocery store to pick up the last, whatever it is. Okay, I need it for tonight. My kids want this for dinner, whatever it is, and you're just like, oh, you just got pulled out of it, right? Right? There's a loud car that goes down the street. There's a worrisome. Notice what those are, and then notice, right? Notice then the immediate judgment that you put on that. All right? And if it's something that you consider good, you're going to be more likely to want to keep that around. If it's something that you consider bad, it's likely that you want to get rid of it. Okay? And that's kind of one of the clinchers. Even when you recognize that, you're like, oh, look at that. I just had a thought, and I thought I was like, I thought that was a saintly thought, or I'm such a good person, or I want to pat myself on the back because I feel like I'm a kind whatever it is, right? But how I'm keeping that experience in my energy field because I made a judgment that it's good. And how I am resistant to, experiences or thoughts or feelings or sensations that I make an assessment that they're bad. So immediately, right, there's this sort of desire and resistance that appear instantaneously. Desire, resistance, desire, and these are happening at the micro. These are happening so quickly that it's like, oh, I don't, it's sort of like going to the left, going to the right, going to the left, going to the right. And even that, right? When you notice that, even that, and that's like but I want that little soft little feeling that I had, right? Then we have to then notice, oh wow, I am desirous of that, and I have an aversion to that. And even then, ask yourself, who am I? Wrest that attention back from that desire, that grabbing onto, right? Oh my God, if I get that lottery ticket, I could win $1 million and I could buy my Mercedes or my Ferrari, right? Okay, I'm going to go and get the lot, right? Oh, wait, no. Oh, hold on. Who am I? So when we notice even that, right? So it's almost like this seesaw, kind of like there's this constant desire, resistance. We're seeking, we're averted to things, right? Even in that, resting our attention from that. Even noticing when we're pulled into something that we think is good, resting our attention from that, being like, who am I even from that? Okay, because what's going to happen if you don't, that attachment is going to be present, and as you continue to go things that you're attached to, then that opposite energy is going to be present of things that you're averted to. All right. Well, and so you can go along, right? You're walking down the street and you hear a loud car. You look out, you're like, God, why do they make cars so loud, right? Or whatever. It's like, Jesus, can't they shut, And so a sound came up. usually it's from the outside world, or you see a sign, or you see something, or whatever it might be, or you're somebody reminds you of a friend or a loved one, and it reminds you of something that maybe you forgot or you did, and you're constantly kind of going into these moments where you're coming out from that pure awareness. You're being pulled. You recognize that. You notice the judgment you've placed on it literally instantaneously. And you notice then even the desire to want to stay with the things that you think are good. Right? As you notice that, then you rest your attention. It's not even that you have to, you don't even have to like, oh my God, I can't think of that. Right? That's not, it's simply resting that attention. Even as we notice it, we just rest the attention. Come back and rest in yourself. And then notice what happens to those objects, right, that are floating around, wanting to be grabbed, or energy. Right? Just notice what happens to those objects. And sort of like they start losing their grasp. They start losing their energetic hold on you. Right? And so that's sort of another aspect of it, that throughout this week, throughout this weekend, right, you can bring into your practice of really asking yourself this question all the time. Who am I? Resting your attention. Who am I? Resting your attention. Who am I? Even as you're listening to me, who am I? Resting your attention. Who am I? And then, I need to pick up, it's a phone call, or I got to finish this note, or I got to call my, whatever that is. Fine. Boom. Right? Even in that, who am I? Can I do this activity from the purity of that space of resting in my awareness? Right? And then recognize, okay, when something comes up that we consider to be bad, we consider to be negative, we consider to be wrong, all right, that's usually when suffering emerges. Okay. And that, as difficult as that might be, because that's another clincher, as difficult as that might be, that's why you've been doing the practice when things are okay. Because then, right, who am I? And it's almost like you gotta, how we mentioned before, you gotta turn up the volume. You gotta turn up the volume on that. Right? Who am I? Who am I? Resting back. Resting back. Resting back. And that, you might say, is the antidote to suffering. Finding your true nature. Your being happy, being content, being at peace. Right? And like, imagine if you were, you had a loved one in your hands and they were the last moment of their life. What would you want them to do? I would want them to recognize who they truly are and rest in that. All right, so let's go into our practice. The essence of self-inquiry. Okay, so let's find a comfortable posture. A posture you feel relaxed yet alert. Closing your eyes if you feel comfortable closing your eyes. If not, having a soft downward gaze. And taking 2 or 3 deep breaths. And with each inhale, feeling the breath coming into our body, and with each exhale, feeling the breath leaving our body. Seeing if we can release any tension within our physical body, mind, or spirit with each exhale. And then breathing regularly at whatever pace works best for you. And directing your attention to your resource or your anchor. A place that you can direct your attention to that you feel safer. And from this attention that is projected to our anchor or resource, if we can, see if we can relax or rest our attention. As if it's going back to its source. As if the light could turn the beam back onto itself and shine it right onto the light bulb, the source of the light. That's just like awareness, our true nature, the light bulb. And seeing if we can rest our attention back to its source, just as a light bulb would rest in itself, knowingly. And asking yourself, who am I? Who am I really? And as you might have a thought, an emotion, or a felt sense, even asking yourself, is that what I truly am? And if you were to describe your true nature, what would you say? And resting in that. And if your attention gets projected outwardly to a thought, an emotion, a sensation, that's perfectly okay. Resting your attention softening it. As if for just one moment you can put your attention to rest and allow it to fall asleep. And if there is a sense of seeking or resisting, allow your attention to even soften from that. No seeking, no resisting. Resting in pure awareness.
And as we bring this meditation to a close today, asking yourself, how can I bring this practice into my everyday life? How can I rest my attention in pure awareness and consciously reside more freely in pure awareness? And with that, taking 2 or 3 deep breaths, opening your eyes if your eyes were closed, stretching or moving if you need to stretch, and just taking a moment to reflect on your practice today.